Okay, I guess I'm going to call this to order. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for participating tonight. We're going to keep it rather relaxed and loose tonight so that we can have an opportunity to get to know each other and to see what the issues are in front of us if we can. So the only thing I think we need to remember is speak your mind, but be kind in the process, because we're all human. We're going to overstep some bounds sometimes in the way we present something, but it's not done out of harm, it's done out of love. So let's keep it that way, please. If you would, Alex.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For those of you I haven't met personally or virtually, my name is Alex Thomas. I'm really honored to be one of the co-chairs of the Procurement and Contracting Subcommittee. Hopefully you all received the email last week with the agenda, as you can see on the screen here. Thank you, Jalissa, for showcasing the agenda. Does anyone have any issues or any changes to the agenda right now from where it stands? No? Great. I guess we'll go ahead and move into a roll call, and just make sure to unmute yourself and say present. If you have any issues with your microphone, just feel free to make sure you're known in the chat box. Give me 1 second. Let me pull the roster. Commissioner James Moses.
That's me.
Commissioner Chris Corsaz Zimmerman.
Right here. Yep.
Commissioner John Funny.
Oh, I think I'm here as an ex officio member of the committee. I will be serving as ex officio on all committees. They were supposed to change that, but I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Danita Knight.
Good evening, I'm present.
Commissioner Marco Palma. Commissioner Marco Palma. All right. Commissioner Anibal Torres.
Good evening, I'm here.
Commissioner Zaki Anwar.
This is he. This is me.
Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
You did.
Perfect. And I know Commissioner Beth Wendell, she had a prior commitment, so she's not able to join us tonight. And then Commissioner Alex Thomas, I'm here. And that's everybody. So part of the new business, as Commissioner Moses mentioned just a few minutes ago, we really want to take this opportunity for everyone to introduce themselves again. I know that we had a chance to meet most of everyone in the general commission meeting, but we really want to get a chance to know each other a little bit more on a personal basis. I know myself, this is something I told Commissioner Funny last month when he first invited me to be co-chair. I'm definitely open ears. I want to come into this with an open mind. I personally don't have a background in contracting or procurement, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone felt comfortable just discussing these topics. I don't think anyone expects any one person to be an expert. So I just wanted to make sure that we all come into this with an open mind and get to know each other a little bit more. If we can get everyone to just kind of share just a couple of things that maybe they're looking forward to, or a couple of things that they're hoping to get from their participation on this subcommittee, that would be extremely helpful for us to just kind of spark the conversation. Anybody want to start?
So I'll start. Good evening, everyone. Danita Knight. I'm very excited to be involved with the commission and the subcommittee, and just generally hoping that we will move into a space where we can enhance Brookhaven's reputation in this area by examining policies that exist, but also being courageous enough to challenge some things that may not be appropriate.
Great. Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's feedback as well, and looking to see what policies, what things are in place right now that, you know, deserves a closer look, and what things can be challenged.
Thank you.
Well,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to butt in right quick and say that, you know, I'm excited about the process of looking at the policies and procedures in place and to see where we can make them more inclusive in the bidding process, because as we talked in our first get together meeting with Commissioner Thomas and myself, we were tasked to look at the ways to make sure that when Brookhaven produces a bid for services or goods within the city, that there's a way that we can reach out to more and more people so they understand that goods and services are bought from the city, and that there is a process involved in bidding on those jobs. And that's all I got.
I'll hop in and
okay.
say one of the things I'm looking forward to the most is just thinking of creative ways that we can increase the knowledge, as Commissioner Moses was just saying, amongst the citizens of Brookhaven about the bidding process. I feel like there's so many small business owners that are right here in our community who could really benefit from knowing how to, you know, potentially procure, you know, potentially take part of some of the services that Brookhaven needs. And so, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to what ways we can best communicate that to the public, what ways they can increase their own business, and really keep a lot of the services that we have right here in Brookhaven as much as possible. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
I guess I'll jump in because I'll echo those same words as Commissioner Thomas. I recently retired as the Executive Director and CEO of the Latin American Association in Brookhaven, but I jumped on a new organization that was founded in Florida 30 years ago. It's called Prospera. And what Prospera does, and I was part of that group that started back in Florida, and what they do is empower Latino entrepreneurship. So that is a gap that we have here in the Metro Atlanta area in the state of Georgia. So I hope that with our organization, we can create more Latino entrepreneurs. And for me, it's basically what Commissioner Thomas said, is learn a little more about the process of how to do business with the city. So as we create hopefully more Latino businesses in the area, that they can benefit from those contracts.
So I'm here, so I'll jump in with just a couple of things. I think this is a great opportunity for this committee to review policies that are in place and to look for ways to enhance how the city of Brookhaven can continue doing business with businesses that have been very productive for the city, as well as looking at how we advertise and who we advertise to, and what communities, and when I say communities, what different associations we are attached to be able to spread the word about the opportunities that exist in Brookhaven. And then being able to have periodically small business panels or small business forums to bring them in and really help them through the process, help them to become entrepreneur. And I think Commissioner Torres mentioned this, but I think the city have an opportunity to empower people so that they can become business owners here in the city. There are talents here that we can help nourish. So those are a few things that I think is very important for this committee looking at what we're doing now and coming up with ways on how we can improve.
Can jump in now. This is Zaki. I completely echo all the commissioners who have gone before me and shared their views. Yeah, for me, I think kind of echoing the same the same understanding is understanding what are the policies that exist today. One is understand, and then review, and acknowledge what is right, challenge what we feel needs to be improved, and see how we can share and disseminate this information out to the citizens of Brookhaven, and find the channels of communication, right? The different channels of communication that can best get the information out. Would it be more of a pull, more of a push, and how all this can lead to a social change for the betterment of the city.
And I guess the one thing I'll add in addition to all these things is, to me, I think that the procurement and contracting process is like a sneaky, impactful way that cities really have an impact, or that the government of a city has an impact on the city itself. And I think it's a one way to really inject, it's a very powerful way to inject equity into what the city does that isn't really obvious. It's not like the policing task force, or it's not, I don't know, it's not something that is very obvious or viewable, but I think it can have a really big impact. So.
Are there any other comments, thoughts, any other expectations that you all are wanting from this particular subcommittee?
Will we be discussing or knowing how much money the city spends on some of these contracts, and what are some of the, I guess we'll go into that eventually, what are some of the projects and what are some of the things that the city spends the money on? So that we know exactly what are those businesses that could benefit from this. I mean, I have no idea, I have no knowledge about this issue of procurement. So if we can also discuss what are those areas where the city's, looking for businesses to participate, and what kind of business are those, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Mr. Chapman is probably more at liberty to answer that, but hopefully everyone will get a chance to review the list of contracts, existing contracts in 2020 for the city of Brookhaven. We sent that out towards the end of last week. But if Mr. Chapman wants to hop in and answer that question, I will open the floor for that.
Sure thing. Let me just introduce myself. I'm the, I guess I'm the city representative, and will help guide you and get the information that the committee needs to be able to do its work. Once again, Steve Chapman, I'm the assistant city manager and CFO. I've been doing this work for 30 some odd years now. I've been in charge of procurement departments for about the last 15 or 20 years. And I've actually had two presidents of the National Institute of Government Purchasing Managers. Two presidents of that organization actually report to me. So I think I'm the only person in the United States that's had two presidents of the NIGP work for him. So I'm pretty familiar with purchasing, and the government rules. We have a lot of rules and regulations that we have to follow with respect to purchasing. So just to answer the question that's on the table very quickly, though, is I did have the purchasing manager, Shakira Hall, produce what we did back in 2020 and basically get to a big number. And And what you'll see is the bulk of those contracts, and it was about $29 million, I believe. The bulk of it was for big construction projects that the city is doing. Other big contracts that we have are for personnel services, because we contract out our public works department, and we also contract out the bulk of our community development department, the planning and zoning function, the building permits function, the inspection function. So if you look at all that, and if you take away the big capital projects that we're working on, the city really purchases, I'm going to say, very little. And I'll get you a dollar amount, an annual dollar amount spend that we don't spend on things like utilities, lease, salaries. But we are starting with a $29 million budget. And I'll just say off the top of my head, I wouldn't be surprised, outside of capital projects that are funded through bonds, I wouldn't be surprised if the city's annual spend is less than $4 million on goods throughout the year. So I hope that gives you a basic idea of what we're looking at. And I'll be able to produce that information. I already took a note to see what I can provide for the committee for your next meeting.
Mr. Co-Chair.
Yes.
I would like to
There we go.
make a statement if it's okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chapman, thank you for giving us the highlight on the data that was provided and some information. And this is just from a fiscal position. I think any dollars that are spent by the city, be it funds that come in from a bond or funds that come in from tax initiative, is money spent by the city. And I think that's really, it would be great to capture that also. And I think you captured a lot of those capital program projects in that spreadsheet. And what would be very helpful, I'm an engineer, I'm sorry. I like to graph things to take a look at the historical trend. And I think from a data request, Mr. Co-Chairs, I think we want to get more than 1 year as a snapshot, because if we're only going to look at one point on a graph, it really doesn't tell a story. So I would just suggest that this committee looked at more than 1 year to really get a story of how it happened over the past 2, 3, or 4 years, whatever the committee decide. But that will begin to tell a story and share with us the expenditures over an annual basis and not just 1 year. So Mr. Chapman, I think, is that data readily available?
No, it'll be difficult to pull, but maybe for next month's meeting, we might be able to have that.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. As soon as you mentioned it, it just made me think about, as you mentioned, pulling historical data. 2020 was just such a odd year in our lifetime. So of course, I don't have the expertise to know how that would affect local governments and spending, but I would imagine that for any type of project such as this one, 2020 might not be the only year that we will want to pull that data. So thank you for that suggestion. It makes a lot of sense. So moving along, one of the things that we really want to discuss tonight were 2 questions. And that brings up to the point of what is the definition of how we will use equality? What's the definition of, I think that question is written wrong, but basically what we wanted to say was, how will we use the mission of our subcommittee to improve equality and justice in the city of Brookhaven? So how can we use procurement and contracting specifically to promote equality? So hopefully everyone got a chance to reflect on that. I'm definitely, eager to hear any ideas that anyone may have of what your definition looks like. So I just wanted to open the floor and see if anyone had any suggestions, any ideas of what that definition will look like. I will start off and say, for me personally, the starting point would be knowledge. So making sure everyone has a level playing field, a knowledge base. I think that's very important. I think it's very difficult to expect everyone to have a part of the process if you don't even know where to begin. And so that's one of my main missions of this subcommittee, is really equaling the playing field, whether that be through hosting virtual workshops for small business owners in our community, if that means actually having some type of opinion poll or some type of survey that we would disperse in the community. But I think that we really have to have an equal playing field in terms of knowledge, and not only promote the bids of the city, the goods and services that the city needs, to a small group of folks who may have always traditionally gotten those bids. So that's not to say that's necessarily happening now, but I think there's definitely things that we can put in place to make sure that everyone has a equal playing field when it comes to knowledge. So really increasing the knowledge is how I would define equality from this subcommittee.
And speaking from my past employment with the federal government for almost 20 years procuring products for the federal government, I think the most important thing we can do to ensure equality when we start to reach out to others is make sure that the statement of work that is written and posted for bid is written in plain language, instead of putting a lot of the technical jargon that may be associated with that particular industry endeavor. If you need a 50-foot, 1-inch nylon braided rope in the color yellow, that's what you put out in plain, simple English, so everybody knows exactly what they're bidding on and what product they're expected to deliver. If you don't do that, you leave it too much for interpretation and substitutions, which may or may not serve the purpose that the city needs done.
And I think not just in English as well.
Oh, of course, but we use the phrase plain English when we're writing the contracts because we know we have to translate them into the other languages. But if you know as well as I do, if you're working from an English document, if it's not written in plain, down-to-earth, common sense usage, the translation does not come off well. So we want everybody to have the same thing in both languages, or even multiple languages if need be, to incorporate these things so everybody's bidding on the same thing.
And so just building on what has been shared already, I would just like to add the word access to the equation too. So,
yes.
And whatever that means, I mean, that also could get into accessibility and ensuring that we are mindful on the front end to be in that space to just be sure, as you all both have said, that everyone can have an opportunity on a level playing field.
And
I would just,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I would just add that equality for me would be kind of creating the process of creating the environment for businesses owned by people of color and or women and other communities to participate in the procurement and contracting process, where the entire process is easy to understand, easy to access, and is easy to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would go almost further to say that I would love to see either with our group or the city more broadly actively pursuing contracts and business from businesses or contractors that are people of color or women, like was said, or groups that employ a large number of people of color or other minoritized people. But actively pursuing that, having lists of those businesses that are contacted almost first, if not intentionally, to really make an effort to not just put the information out there, but to really pursue those organizations that are doing their work through a more equitable lens.
That is an excellent point. I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to read through or browse the city's purchasing policy, but that actually made me think of one of the statements in the policy itself is listed as one of the purchasing objectives, and it says that the city objective is to select suppliers not by price alone, but through detailed evaluation of quality, service, price, productivity, availability, administrative costs, environmental impact, and experience. So basically the people who are, the way I interpret that, the people who are landing these bids, who are getting these bids, it's not limited to one particular criteria. It's not always just about who's going to do that service or provide that good for the cheapest price. And so that's where I think there's some room for growth. I think some responsibility falls on the city to make sure that they are kind of spreading the wealth, so to speak, that we're not always just giving out the bids to the same person who can do it for the cheapest cost, but also who can do it the most efficiently. Maybe the environmental impact, I think that's something that definitely should be considered. So I really thought that particular objective really stood out to me as I was reviewing the city's purchasing policy.
And I might add too that in that same frame of mind, if you look at two separate companies, for example, company A may always come in very low bid. So if you're using just the dollar amount, they may be the go-to company. But then if you look at their past history, they always have contractual issues, which causes mediation to rectify the substandard performance on the contract, or they may have gotten fines or something about the way they're doing their work. Company B may be a young company, hasn't done as many jobs, but yet they have a good history for the jobs that they've done. So they should be given consideration too. So, you know, you have those aspects of contractual obligations that you have to look at when you're choosing someone, because past performance is important, especially when you're spending someone else's money.
Is there like in the city a I don't know what the word is, a rule or whatever what the exact word is, that so many jobs need to go to, you know, minority business or people of color or
this
that type of thing?
is Steve Chapman. Let me answer that right away. State law prohibits us from doing any of that.
Okay, all right.
So state, just to, okay, so I'm a small business owner. I own and planning an engineering firm. So Steve, I'm going to push back you to that one, because if the city have local funds, the city could actually have a minority participation policy. If the state have state fund, you can use the state minority status to share in project costs based upon the state formula. And for the federal, that one is a little tricky, but I know
that one's a lot tricky.
Yeah, federal one is tricky. I know the local funds, you can actually, put in some language there. But I think in addition to that, what I think will be great is data requests, Mr. Co-Chairs, is for us, because Commissioner Moses made a great point, is to see what the language is in some of the sample proposal requests that we sent out. And I think reviewing that will better position this committee, position us to be able to read what they have there to see if it's arithmetic or is it math, just simple math. And I think that makes a difference, Commissioner Moses. You made a very good point. And something that I think we want to invite people to be participatory with the procurement process, but we also should reward businesses for what they have done for the city. And when you do that, it attracts other business. What are they doing? Why are they giving that small business an award? Because they did a good job for us. That also attracts. Or why are they giving a large business an award? Because they did a good job for us. I think that attracts and help open up to be more accessible to people who would bring opportunities to the city or come to the cities for opportunity. But those are things that I think we're going to have to ask for data on as it relates to the minority participation language, when it can and can't be used. The city attorney, Chris Bulk, is, he works for the city. I'm sure he can help with us on some of those language also, as well as Steve, Mr. Chapman. He has his finger in the pulse with that.
I have another question. What role could the Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce play in all of this? I know there is a Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce. And maybe Steve, you can answer that. I mean, does the chamber play a role in promoting some of these contracts, or making sure that if there are members from that are based in Brookhaven know about this? Because I mean, just what kind of role does the Brookhaven Chamber play?
Yeah, so the Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce, one of our council members, actually the Mayor Pro Tem, Gebbia,
Right,
is a liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, and we have a very good working relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, and the city actually supports the Chamber of Commerce financially. The information that the chamber gets out to its members, that I really can't tell you that I know much about, and I don't know how proactive they have been. In this day and age of everything being on the web, most of our procurements are done electronically now and are posted electronically. So if the chamber, or any other group for that matter, is not, say, getting registered as a vendor with the city, and is not aware of how to look at the state RFP, the procurements that are going on all over the state on that website, that's really how these big projects are getting done and things getting procured. So that's a good question. And that's really, I think that would be something that would be very interesting for this committee to pursue, questions with that.
Mr. Chapman, I have another question. I guess it's a little bit more straightforward. Has the city provided any recognition for services and goods provided? Has that been something that has ever been done?
Yeah, like, do we have like you're a platinum provider of services to us award? Yeah, no, we haven't done anything like that.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So I know that we've kind of touched on this already. I appreciate the feedback, and I feel like we've already kind of led into the second discussion question, which is how difficult or easy is it to access information on providing goods and services for the city of Brookhaven? And so we've already had some excellent points made about having it in plain language, having it provided where it can easily be understood by everyone. But I also want to get back to the point, I believe it was one of the commissioners, Commissioner Knight, who mentioned about access. And so let's say hypothetically, I'm a small business owner who owns a landscaping company. I don't have a big social media presence. I don't have a very large presence on the internet as far as my business. How would I have access to bids for certain services for the city? How would I be able to promote my company and put my company in a position where I can actually land one of those bids? So those are just some things I thought about as I saw that discussion question. So I just want to kind of throw that out there and see if anyone had any other thoughts or comments or feedback.
Well, if I might for a moment, going back to some of the things I've done in the past, we were required by federal regulations to go through another government entity to procure printed products for the federal government, which means every statement of work had to go through them first, and then they would bid out, they would rewrite the statement of work based upon our specifications, and they would bid out their products, these products. Now, they also used an electronic board, if you will, which most contractors printing contractors would sign in daily, look at the specifications. If they thought that this was something that fit their niche, they would go ahead and bid on the job. And then they would get 3 bids and then award it based upon not only price, but past performance. If they had any outstanding litigation against them. So, you know, it goes back to the statement I heard a while ago that most of the procurements and contracts are done electronically now. So we have to determine if the city of Brookhaven on their webpage has a place where people could go in and look to see what projects are coming up and if there's something that they can bid on to be considered for that project. And they don't have to be a big business. They can be a small landscaping service, maybe break it up amongst 4 of them to maintain the parks or something in the area, cut the grass and make sure they're nice and stuff. They don't have to be in charge of running the full park facility per se, but they have a piece of the pie going in and doing the work and keeping it nice for the rest of us too.
Excellent point.
I agree with Commissioner Moses. I like his definition of piece of the pie, because sometimes agencies, they're interested in getting it done, just get one company and get it done. But I think if there's a business fair where you can bring in the small businesses and bring in the large business, they can meet partners and get a piece of the pie. I like that. And I don't think Steve, have we done this like a business fair or
That was actually a question that I wanted to pose. I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Knight. I'll be quiet.
No. No, you did it beautifully. I was just hoping that we had an opportunity. It felt like that was kind of one step removed from the conversation we're having tonight, but I definitely would like to make note of it and have it on the table, along with something else that was previously referenced, which is a business award event of some kind to recognize, you know, those outstanding companies regardless of size in Brookhaven.
Yeah, so to be able to answer that question, for everybody to understand, the Brookhaven Procurement Department is a 1-person operation. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done, but there's a lot of times there's not that many hours in the day. So ultimately, everything that's been discussed here this evening's great, and it's just it'll ultimately be a decision of being able to put the resources forward to be able to get those things completed. There's not one thing that anybody said this evening that I wouldn't be in agreement with. But again, it's ultimately going to come down to resources. And right now we have one person, Shakira Hall, that I don't know how she gets everything done, but she does. So that's kind of where we're at. So that's why you're going to hear a lot of this. No, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. But we are getting our purchases, and we are doing a lot of purchasing. So that's the other side of the coin.
So maybe that could be one of our key recommendations, is to take a look at the staffing of the procurement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. So I had in a city of 40,000, a little bit less than Brookhaven. I had 2 people in the procurement department. In a city of 60,000 people, which Brookhaven is approaching, I had 5 people in my procurement department.
There we go.
So I would think the answer would be the number needs to be somewhere between 2 and 5.
Well,
Steve, I've got a question, and it's maybe because Brookhaven has not been established as long as Chamblee have, but do we have any idea how many people are in the Chamblee procurement department?
You know, I don't, but that'll be an easy number for me to get for the group.
Because we have one person who's in charge of a budget of over 29 million, and they're responsible for basically signing off on every procurement and contract the city enters into.
Well,
I think that,
Jim,
okay,
I'm gonna
clarify.
even expand that number even higher. We have one person that's in charge of the procurements for a $40 million park bond project, for $47 million worth of splosh projects, and $15 million that's just been finalized on Peachtree Creek Greenway Phase 1. So, you know, that's $100 million worth of projects that we've been working on here over the last 3 years.
Okay,
with
but
one procurement person.
okay, but do we understand what liability that we're putting that person under?
Oh, we do.
And it's an acceptable liability then, correct?
Absolutely. Well, because we do have policies and procedures in place, we follow them, and she's a certified procurement person, and we do very good work with minimum resources.
So Steve, quick question for you.
Sure,
Matter of fact,
And
probably-
I don't doubt that one bit. I'm not trying to. Go ahead, please.
there. Yeah, Steve,
I was just going to say, I'm not trying to disparage.
breaking up, Commissioner Moses.
I was just going to say, I'm not trying to disparage anybody. I'm just mind boggled by the magnitude of responsibility that one person has. And it would take a Herculean effort for that person to be able to be comfortable with the day in, day out things that she's doing. My hat's off to her.
So Steve, prior to coming to this meeting, I was on the City of Brookhaven's Park Bond committee meeting, which is the park bond you just referenced. Very good project. Thank you guys for procuring that. But from what I've gathered is that the city have a professional service contract with Jacobs Engineering, who's providing the day-to-day management and budgeting and tracking and cost analysis and dealing with all the consultants. Do you see that that's a contract to assist the city's procurement department and parks department? Or do you see that they do not break down the management of that $100 million? Because I see that they manage a portion of that $100 million and the city is doing pieces of it. Thank you very much. But I see them playing a big role. Explain that relationship as it relates to roles and responsibilities.
Sure thing. So the city passed let's stick with the park bond, a $40 million park bond. And in that park bond, it separated out, and I believe it's 7 parks that each one was going to get a certain amount of money. So the city, understanding that we don't have in-house staff to manage those projects, hired 2 firms. One was a firm called CPL, and they're the ones that are doing the final designs and getting the scope of the projects ready to be bid on. The second firm is Jacobs Engineering. Jacobs Engineering is literally acting as a project manager. They're just making sure that all the gears are running correctly, all the different, either the vendors, after the vendors have been selected, making sure that CPL is getting the scope and the RFP packages to our procurement person in a timely fashion, so that she can review it and then do the bidding process according to the city specs. So as far as procurement of these projects go, though, the outside firm produces the scope and specs. However, those scope and specs get put into the city's template to ensure that we follow our process to procure these projects. Then once the project is procured and a vendor selected, then that vendor is handed off to Jacobs, so that Jacobs makes sure they get that project built on time, under budget, and if there's any issues going on with it, Jacobs is handling it. So that's kind of the way with the park bond that things are going on. Jacobs is the main provider for information to our oversight committee, and the oversight committee is watching to make sure that things are being spent on what they're supposed to be spent on. And if there are any major changes needed with a project, it would go to the oversight committee. And the one that comes to mind is in Linwood Park, we had to change from a lazy river to a splash pad. And that was a major change for that project. So, but ultimately that went back to the city council. So for this committee's focus, we do have engineering firms that put together scope for different projects, but that scope then gets put into a bigger package by our procurement department, and then the procurement department makes sure all the advertising happens correctly, make sure that everything is bid out correctly, make sure everything's received correctly, make sure all the data is received, and so we still take charge of the actual procurement.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yes, that was good. Thank you.
So if I might offer a suggestion, these 2 topics of discussion that we've went through so far, now that we've had a chance to talk amongst ourselves and hear some of the ideas, let's table them till next meeting. We'll bring them up under old business and maybe take a few days and think about it. Try to think of some old school methods and new school methods of getting the information out, and how we can get other people involved in the process of bidding for procured jobs or contracting with the city, and think about our definition for equality or equity in this system, because it can't be just cookie cutter, one size fits all. It has to be something that has a little bit of flexibility built in so that circumstances can be judged upon the merits of the person who's bidding for the job, not just the fact that, well, they came in under, so we took their bid.
And can we
Great.
also,
Go ahead.
okay, can we also, during this process, understand the life cycle of the procurement process? In the sense, one is the bidding process, right? After the bidding process, you certainly have many different stages of, one is right from when the bid is put out to how the bid is formalized, to getting a contract, then getting paid, then building the capacity, and then how do you move a small business from where they are to the next level? Maybe we can also start thinking on those lines and see what the city has, and if there is anything that we can do to review and challenge some of those steps.
Yeah, this is Steve Chapman again. It's that's all really good questions again. Quite frankly, I know I'm the staff liaison, but I think one thing I'd like to do is to give this subcommittee a work assignment. And what I'll do is I will send the link to the city's website where all the procurement information is on. And what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see the current RFPs that are out there, the closed RFPs, and the awarded contracts. And there's a lot of data there, okay? I think that if you go through that, you will see in each one of our RFPs, the procurement process, as Mr. Anwar asked, is spelled out in those documents, usually by dates, like by this date, we're going to be doing this. A committee will be looking at that. By this date, we will be doing this to the city council. So I think if this subcommittee were to take a look at 5, 6, 7 solicitations there, you will start to get a better idea of how this process works, because it's all spelled out in those RFPs. And then we can come back and you can quite frankly say, I had a hard time just finding the site, or I had a hard time following all this, purchasing jargon that I didn't understand, or I didn't see any Spanish versions, or, you can start developing those questions, and that'll go back to what I heard a number of the subcommittee members say, that a big concern is access and information. And I think what you have to do is see what the current access is, and then let's start, and then we'll move forward that way. In addition, so I'll send that link, and then Mr. Thomas can go ahead and send it out to the subcommittee. And then I'll be working on getting, the awarded contracts for the last couple of years, to give you a longer history of what the city has done, if that's acceptable.
Oh, yeah, that's very helpful, actually.
Yes.
Mr. Co-Chairs, I'm sorry, I wanted to jump in because I was like, that's really good that can be done. But I wanted to also say that Jalissa, thank you, Jalissa, for setting this up and being here. Jalissa is in the process, Mr. Chapman, of hiring an intern from Oglethorpe. So if there's a need that where her assistant can help you a little bit on some of the data, Jalissa, could you all talk about that to see if there's a possibility there, if the intern would be able to assist? Because I hear you, Mr. Chapman. I know there's 20,000 things on your plate. I know. So we appreciate you though, because this is going to be so helpful to us.
So the intern's focus will be mostly in communications, like that's what their job description is and everything. They have a 10-hour monthly work hours, so only
Okay.
10 hours per month. So it might, I think they'll have a lot of stuff to do already with what's already described in their position. But yeah, I've reviewed the resumes. I think working with HR to like do the next steps of like interviewing and stuff like that. So hopefully they'll come on board pretty soon.
All right, so I have an action
We'll do
item
our
on
best
my,
to get everybody everything they need.
okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. That'd be so helpful.
Well, Alex, is there anything else you'd like to throw out? Comments from the other members or what?
I don't see any other comments. I know that everyone loved the analogy of, you know, kind of sharing, everyone getting a piece of the pie. I just want to thank Mr. Chapman for joining us tonight, for providing all the valuable information about the city's current contracting and procurement procedures, and just bringing his expertise to the table is greatly appreciated. So I just wanted to echo my appreciation for him joining us tonight.
Well,
Thank you
I'd
very
like to
much, and
thank-
I will be here every night.
Well, I'd like to thank all the members who took time out of their schedule to join us tonight. And hopefully we've all got a little bit better understanding of some of the things that we bring to the table and some of our thought processes. And over the next few months, I believe we will flesh that out even more. If there's no other comments from the members, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful evening. We will see each other next month.
Take care, have a good evening.
All right,
All
y'all.
right, bye-bye.